Now, this is my drawing. The next thing we want to do the shading, or what we call the value, which is a measurement from lightness to darkness. Before I show you that, let me go ahead and demonstrate you some examples that I have from my students that I have done in the past. This is one example done by a student of mine. The value is basically the range of the darkness and the lightness, basically how to apply that to your drawing. I have several examples. Here's another example. This one has a darker value. Here's another example. Here's another example. And here's the next one. Okay, let's go ahead and begin with the shading. When we do value, there's a couple of ways to do this. You can either use fancy pencils like so. These are drawing pencils that you can get in your local store like Walmart, Staples, or Michael's. Just make sure they're graphite, not charcoal. Charcoal is a different medium, which almost has the same concept as graphite, but it's a little tricky. But you want to make sure they're pencils. If you don't have your fancy drawing pencils, you can just use your regular number 2 pencil. You can also use blending tools like so. This is what we call a stump, and the smaller one is called a tortillon. These are for blending. If you don't have these, you can use your finger, you can use a Q-tip, or even tissue paper to blend the pencil, which I'll show you in a bit. The other thing you can also use, you can use mechanical pencils. The possibilities are endless. So let's begin. Now before I begin, let me show you this sheet. This is value. The range is going from light to dark. The key is to apply this to your drawing to make it realistic in a sense. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to go ahead and start with this eye. When I go to this side, notice that the pupil itself is not as dark in the middle. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to go ahead and do an outline of the outside, and then what I'm going to do, I notice that this part here is light. So I'm going to come back and keep my pencil lines together and going in circles to blend the line. Like so. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that for now. I'm going to come back and start adjusting this part here before I start adding shading. I have to adjust this eye like here. So this area here is darker, so I'm going to come back and start adding the dark value. Come back and I'm going to take this line off here. Always important as you go to make adjustments for a better lightness. Come back and adjust this part. Now I'm going to go ahead and start adding value here, a light value. So I'm going to come back, and one thing you need to keep aware of is this. When you do your value, never have your lines like this. It's the same when using color. You always want to keep your lines together like this. Very important. The other step, to blend it, you want to go in circles. And I mean circles, it's not like that, it's a closer circle like this. Going in circles, I'm going to go slow. When you add circles, it will blend the lines for you. So that's the other element you want to apply. The other thing, To get a lighter value, you just apply less pressure to your pencil, and it's going to give you a lighter value. The more pressure you apply, the darker it becomes. Just keep that in mind. So in this sense, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back with a lighter value. Also paying attention to my reference, the picture itself, looking where the values are at. If the value is dark, then I do it dark. I am gonna only do a small section of this, and hopefully it will be helpful to you. It's always I also recommend for you guys to go different directions with your pencil. The next thing we want to do, it's your option if you want to, is to blend it. You can either use Q-tips, your finger, or these blending tools. What I mean when you blend it is when you come with this and you go like this over the pencil line, it will change the value. Again, Q-tips will do the same thing. And also, keep in mind, the more pressure you add, the darker it will become. And again, you can also use your finger. Okay, let's get back to the value. Come back and start adding the value underneath. Going back to the nostril, making it a little tad darker, and then pushing it down like this. Again, the darker it is, you add more pressure. The lighter it is, less pressure. Keeping the lines together and going in circles to push out the value. Go ahead and take this line off. Again, you can do this with any type of pencil. If you decide to go with the drawing pencils, let me quickly show you what they do. Some of the pencils go by letters and numbers. Let's go with this one. HP basically means just like your regular number 2 pencil. 4B will tend to be darker than this. The Ebony, this is a layout pencil. It's very dark, darker than the 4B and the HP. So, in saying this area here is darker. All you have to do is come with a darker pencil like this 4B and come back and exaggerate the value to make things happen. And you repeat the same steps. If you want it darker, then you come back with a layout pencil. Sometimes we have to be careful with a layout pencil. We don't want to get too excited and do this. If you assume because you have a dark pencil and you go like this first, you will have trouble blending your other pencils with it. You always want to go light first. When you go light, then it's easier to come back and go darker as opposed to going dark. So always go light first. It's easier to build the levels as the other way around. So I'm going to come back, add more value, and then I'm just going to switch off to my mechanical pencil and start pushing that value down. Circles is the key. I'm not a fan of using the blending tools. I just use my pencil technique, which is keeping the lines together and going side to side. But you're always welcome to use these Q-tips, tissue paper, or your fingers. Come back over here. And as always, try to go 2 different directions. One thing I forgot to mention, one of the things you want to keep paper white with is your highlights. Those areas will stay completely white, which when you look at your picture, you don't have too many areas that will stay completely white. This area here will be the highlight, that will stay completely white. A little bit inside the cheek and this side will stay completely white. Everything else will be lightly shaded in. And maybe just a tab part of here will be completely white. Everything else you see here, you will have to lightly shade it in. So just have that in mind. I always recommend my students for them to be moving around. You don't want to stay working in one area constantly. It's easier to do a little bit here, there, and so forth. That way you can see your drawing take shape. Now we're going to go and drop it back to the lip. Start adjusting my lines as I go. Adding some value underneath. And then adjusting this. As you go. The same concept that I'm teaching you today using pencils is the same concept using color. Hopefully that will be not as difficult for you to learn. With practice and willingness to learn, you will be able to improve in your drawing skills. Anyone can do this. It's just a matter of fact of sitting down and doing it. It does take time. And I am going to go ahead and stop there. And thank you for your time.